Hi, my name's David Alberts, the founder of BeenThereDoneThat, and this is the next in our series of where we ask people, been there, done that, where next? Because the general belief is that what's got us here is not going to get us to where we need to be. And today I'm very excited to have David Sandstrom with us, the CMO of Klarna. David, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Just can you share with the audience your journey to get here today?
Well, I mean, I don't want to go too far back, but I am a mix of an American, German, Swede. I started my career as a strategist at Klarna, now under Carrot, now under Dentsu. So I was really into consumer behavior, consumer insight, what makes people tick. Transitioned from that into DDB. I headed up DDB as the CEO of DDB in the Nordics for about 7 years and built an award-winning agency for what it's worth. Won a couple of Grand Prix before transitioning now into Klarna, where I'm the CMO and I head up almost all of our consumer operations, consumer growth operations, which is very marketing heavy at Klarna.
Fantastic! What a great journey to prepare yourself for a new model and a new world. So we ask the same questions to every guest. So the first question is, David, what do you see as the biggest problem you're facing in life and work in the industry today?
Yeah. So, I mean, a part of the upbringing of my kids, right? I really want to talk about Klarna. And I mean, Klarna has grown into a big company. We have 500,000 merchants, 150 million consumers in our network, which again means we're a big company. That means that we're very receptive and a target of what's happening in the macros around us, right? And macro has become quite uncertain, quite unstable, quite shaky, both for us as a business, but also for our customers, right? And I mean, the thing when the world around us is shaky is that people tend to revert back to trust. What do they truly trust in? In addition to that, we're a financial company, we're a bank. Trust is really at the heart of what we do, right? So the big topic for me, it's almost on a philosophical level right now, is what is trust? How is trust built nowadays? We know how trust used to be built 20 years ago, right? Men in suits, marble offices, bureaucratic language talking down to consumers, almost having them fear the banking industry. That is gone. That has transitioned into something new. But like, what is trust within the financial industry right now? How does it work? Why do we live in a world where influencers and creators are more trusted than companies, right? We live in a world where people have a very hard time of distinguishing between what is news, what is fake news. We're now seeing the introduction of AI, which is to a large extent fantastic, but also comes with challenges, right? Because we're going to see a completely new set of fraud here, right? You will not know who's calling you on the phone because it's going to sound like, I mean, your spouse maybe, but it's not your spouse, right? So trust in an institution, in a brand, in a company is really at the heart of what I'm thinking about as one of our biggest topics, right? How do we establish that?
That's so interesting. We just did a study with Gen Z for actually a luxury fashion brand. And the thing that everyone talks about Gen Z and where do they sit, but what was fascinating to me was exactly what you said is they've lost trust in what you and I just assumed, be it banks, be it corporations, be it government, whatever. And yet at the same time, they've got access to do their own research and find their own knowledge. So they're kind of going, well, I don't trust these people. I've got more trust in maybe it is an influencer and therefore I'll go to them. But that kind of, as you say, what foundations is that built upon?
Yeah, exactly. And the big topic again is like there used to be a recipe for trust a couple of years ago. There is a reason why all banks are blue, right? Because that is part of the recipe for how you build and how you position and how you design a bank, right? It's a symbol of trust. What we do know today is that the old symbols of trust have vanished. So what are the new ones and how do we connect to them? How do we build them and how do we establish that trust? Partly because of what's happening around us, but also partly because it's at the heart of what a financial institution is.
And what's an example of how you guys look at establishing this trust? Because you've grown so quickly, so there must be trust there. So what are some of the key things that you look at?
I mean, one thing is the obvious. The trust is delivering on what you said you would deliver on, right? So one of the important things from a marketing perspective is to stay really close to the products. We see a lot of products out there that, intrinsically are, bad or not up to par, and where the marketing is actually 2 or 3 steps ahead. And you see the gap in that creates huge trust issues, because trust essentially means that what you say you're going to do, that you're actually delivering on that, right?
I heard someone say the other day, trust or love is a verb, not a noun.
Exactly. That's a nice way of putting it. Another thing is, and I'm not sure I'm right about this, but what we do know is that the banking and financial industry is one of the most distrusted industries in the world. Together with politicians, it's like at the bottom in every single survey. So a lot of how we build trust is to do not that, right? We look at what they do because we know they're distrusted, so we try to not do that, right? So people usually ask me, like, why are you pink? It's because we're not blue, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not a huge strategy, but
no,
still,
but at least it makes people think.
It's the anti-thing, because what we do know, before we know what actually does work, we actually do know what doesn't work, right? So let's start out by not doing that, right?
I love it.
I'm not sure if it's smart strategy, but that is something we've applied.
I think this is the problem, is we've stayed with the same model all the time and not getting any different results. So, that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? So,
there you go.
So tell me, if you were to imagine a world where what would that world be that you think could change the way people interact?
I mean, again, like that is a world in which we have filtered out the companies that are untrustworthy and actually built something true, foundational, personalized, that actually serves the consumer, right? Because currently, I think one of the biggest issues in trust is that the incentives between the legacy banks and companies and the incentives of consumers are misaligned. A bank makes money when you don't repay, because when you don't repay, you actually start paying interest and revolving interest, which means that the bank is happy when the consumer is unhappy, and the other way around, right? So when I look at a perfect world, and like a world without war and stuff as well, right? but still, is where companies' incentives and consumer incentives are fully aligned. And I think that is the brilliant thing with the internet, because the internet makes, it democratizes information, makes access to information both fully available but also fast, right? You have everything in your pocket. You can compare. Like, that world is that is a world where I want to live, because there, in that world, the consumer starts voting with their wallets, and where we see that the companies have to start aligning their business model to the consumer incentives. And I mean, currently, look at the credit card companies. Like, it's an $8 trillion industry making money out of people not repaying.
Yeah. No, I think that, when we first started our business, one of the things, I used to run advertising agencies. Whatever the problem, the answer was television. Yeah. Then I had a content company, and guess what? The answer was content. And so when we started BeenThere, Done That, one of the things we did was decouple thinking from execution. So we weren't fueling our engine, we were actually providing that thinking without agenda to clients. And that has been one of the biggest things for trust for us, is aligning, going, we've got a vested interest in what you do is what we do. Yep. So this is amazing. For people out there, be it from legacy companies or from new model companies, what's the first step that you would advise them in starting on this journey to, be it regain, reestablish, or create trust?
Yeah, to us, it's, and we're still in that process, it is really about understanding the problem. Like, understanding what trust is, how it's built, why it's decayed now, and that process is so interesting, because there are the obvious answers to that, right? But they're not deep enough. Like, the better you are at defining the problem, the easier the answer is going to be. We all know that, right? But that is also why we truly believe in very diversified teams, because the more perspectives you have on a problem, the more clearly you can see that problem, the more clearly you can see it, the solution is going to be more obvious. So truly spending time in the beginning of the process, really trying to define, like, okay, we call it like blockers and boosters. Like, what are the blockers today? Like, what's stopping us from being the most trusted company in the world? And what are boosters? What are things that companies aren't doing today that could actually accelerate our path towards that? And that's hard, right? You can partly do that on a global level, but for us it's very regional. You know, trust in Germany is different, to some extent different than trust in the US and in the UK or Australia, right? So it's a big process for us, right? Really trying to define and find out, like, what is trust? How is it built? Have we looked at it from all different perspectives? And yeah, that to me is the first step, and that should take probably 80% of the process, because the last 20%.
We tap into a problem well defined is a problem half solved, and it's so funny how people are racing to solution, but you just sometimes got to slow down and do that work so you can go fast afterwards.
Yeah.
And we see it. I think I think that's something that is kind of a capability missing in many organizations now, that ability to define problems.
Yeah. But one of my mentors used to, I'm not sure this is smart, but it stuck with me. He always said, David, don't be a crocodile, be an elephant. The crocodile has very small ears and a huge mouth. The elephant has a very small mouth and huge ears. And he was like, ask the right questions, be the elephant, listen to things, don't talk too much.
My dad used to say to me, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth, use it in that proportion.
There you go.
So I think that's right, and I think as leaders, our skill set now has to be about asking the right questions, not having all the answers.
Yeah.
And this is really great, and no wonder you're growing so fast, and I really love your perspective, and thank you very much for sharing it today.
Thanks for having me here.
Thanks a lot. Bye.